Welcome back. This is the second video in my run through the GitHub Foundation certification, otherwise known as GH900. Last time we stayed very much on our own machines. We covered what version control is, the difference between Git and GitHub, and the two ideas everything sits on. A commit, which is a snapshot of your work at a point in time, and a branch, which is just a pointer to one of those commits. If that's new to you, watch the first video in this series because today builds straight on that. Now, this is where Git stops being a thing on your laptop and becomes a thing your whole team shares. This is the half of the basics that is really key, and it's one of the main elements that the exam leans on to check you understand how GitHub is meant to be used. We are going to cover several things in this session. How your local work connects to GitHub, the workflow GitHub expects you to use, the 3 different types of account you have available, Markdown, and the desktop and mobile applications. Let's start with connection, because everything depends on it. When your repository lives on GitHub, as well as on your local machine, GitHub is what's called a remote. Basically a copy of the repository hosted somewhere other than your own computer. Usually that's GitHub, but it does not have to be. GitHub is one place to host a remote, but is not the only one. There are 3 commands which move work between your machine and that remote, and you'll use them every day. Clone makes a full local copy of a repository that already exists on GitHub. And it's the entire history, not just the latest files. You typically do this once when you start development. Push sends the commits you've made locally up to the remote. So until you push, your work only exists on your machine. Pull does the reverse, bringing down commits other people have pushed so your copy can catch up. There is a 4th, as you'll notice from the screen here, which downloads changes without merging them. So you can look before you bring them in. In effect, a pull is really a fetch and a merge in one go. For the exam, know that clone, push, and pull are the key commands and which direction the work moves in. Now the workflow. GitHub, as you can expect, has a firm opinion about how to use all of this, and it has a name, GitHub Flow. You start from main, the default branch, the one that is meant to stay deployable at all times. You don't work on main directly, you branch off it. You make your commits there and push the branch to GitHub and then open a pull request. Now a pull request, and this is the single most important idea on the GitHub side of things, is a proposal to merge your branch into another branch, usually back into main. This is where the reviews happen, where colleagues read your changes, comment, request changes, and where automated checks run, and where the decision to accept the work gets made. Approve and merge, and your commits become part of main. The process effectively becomes branch of main, commit, push, open a pull request, review, and then merge. If you remember one workflow from this whole certification, make it that one. On to accounts. There are 3 different kinds, and they're different in purpose, not just in price. A personal account is for one person, obviously. Your own repositories collaborate on others and get most of GitHub's features. If you signed up tomorrow, that's the account you would get. An organization account isn't a user. Nobody logs in as one. It's a shared space that owns repositories on behalf of a group, with people added as members. Ownership sits within the group, not any one person, and you manage access using teams, which lets you grant permissions to a group of members at once instead of repository by repository. Someone leaves, you remove them, and the repositories stay put. That's the primary point of an organization. Finally, an enterprise account sits above organizations. It's how a large company manages many organizations together with central control over policy, security, billing, and identity. Things like single sign-on, centralized policies, GitHub, advanced security, or GAS, all are managed at that level. You probably won't touch it as an individual developer, but the exam seems to want to know that seems to want you to know that that's where central governance lives. So personal is one person, organization is a shared owner using teams for access, and enterprise governs many organizations centrally. Briefly, Markdown, because we'll go into that in a lot more detail a bit later on, and I'm hoping a lot of you are aware of this, but Markdown is a lightweight way to format plain text with a few symbols, such as a hash for a heading, asterisk for bold, a dash for bullet, etc., etc. It stays readable as plain text, and GitHub renders it wherever you use it, and you use it everywhere. So your README file that explains what a project is, your issues, pull requests, comments, discussions, and wikis. GitHub's version is called GitHub Flavored Markdown and adds a few extras like tables and task lists. For the exam, apparently it's important to recognize what it is and where it shows up. You don't need the full syntax memorized at this stage. And on to the apps. There's the web interface, which is probably what most people picture. There's GitHub Desktop, which is a free Windows and Mac app that does the common operations, so commit, push, pull, switch branches, without accessing or using the command line. And there is GitHub Mobile on iOS and Android, which is for keeping up when you're away from your desk. So reviewing pull requests, replying to issues, clearing notifications, that type of thing. Finally, there's the GitHub CLI for those people who do want to be in the terminal. It's important to note that none of them replace each other. They're different doors into the same building. Now, finally, for this session, I want to cover off something that is probably very important for this, which is cloning versus forking. So cloning copies a repository down to your own machine, whilst forking makes a copy of someone else's repo under your own account, still linked to the original. So you fork when you don't have write access, but want to propose changes, which is exactly how contributing to open source solutions is supposed to work. So you fork the project into your account, clone your fork to your machine, make changes, push them back up to your fork, then open a pull request against the original. So a fork lives on GitHub under your name, a clone lives on your computer, related, often done one after the other, but not the same thing. And a question that hinges on that difference can catch people out. So to summarize, a remote is a hosted copy of your repository, usually on GitHub. Clone copies it to your machine, push sends commits up, and pull brings them back down. GitHub Flow is branch from main, commit, push, open a pull request, review, then merge, with main kept deployable. A pull request is both the way you merge and the place reviews happen. There are 3 account types. For one, user, organization, and enterprise. Markdown is the plain text formatting used across READMEs, issues, and pull requests, and forking copies a repository to your account on GitHub, which is not the same as cloning it to your machine. That's the second half of domain 1, the half that turns Git from something you use alone into something a team runs on. Next session, we'll dive into domain 2, repository settings, so default branches, branch protection policies, etc., etc., which is where we start making main behave the way an enterprise actually needs it to. So, see you in the next video. Thank you very much.